Welcome to It Starts in the House.
I'm Bianca. I'm 43 years old. I am originally from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
My name's Shane O'Brien. I'm a financial advisor currently with Raymond James. I do investment management, retirement planning, and it's a full service kind of financial planning. I grew up in upstate New York. I was actually born in California, but I grew up in upstate New York, just with my father because my mother actually had an accident when I was 2 years old and passed away. So I grew up with a single father. I had a pretty big support system growing up with my grandmother and my father's side of the family in New York.
I grew up there until I was 11 years old. My father and my mother separated when I was about 9, and my dad, his father, was American. So he decided that he was going to come here, and when they separated, and I came along, me and my younger brother. So I am one of 5 kids. I'm the only girl. I had 4 brothers. And only one, my younger one and I were the ones that moved here. My older brother stayed in Brazil. We lived in Connecticut for a while. Dad, an immigrant, like not speaking a lot of English, just worked 2 jobs to make ends meet. He worked at Taco Bell, he worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and we pretty much were latchkey kids. You know, we would come home and just kind of take care of each other until, my dad would get home.
When I was little, my father was actually in the same profession. So I was raised around it. He would, take me to the office on weekends at times to go with him when he wanted to do a little extra work. So I was always very familiar with the job and kind of what it entailed. As I got older, as young people often want to do, I wanted to go out and do my own thing.
We lived that life until I was about 15, 16 years old. I started rebelling against everything and anyone, and I started getting involved with the wrong crowds and, just started giving my dad a lot of trouble. I ran away from home. He would from time to time not know where I was, and he just got fed up with it and said, okay, you're going back to Brazil to live with your mom.
So I went to school for something different, for more of like a marketing type career. I worked in that for about a year or 2 after college. And then when I started kind of seeing what I wanted in a career, I realized that it kind of matched up with what I saw my father doing, which was taking care of people, helping them plan, developing relationships with people, helping them to plan for their future, and I was drawn to that.
So he shipped me back to Brazil. I always say my dad deported me about a couple of months before I was supposed to graduate high school. And I went to live with my mom, and that was a big shock. One, because I was still very angry over everything that had happened, over her leaving us when I was so young, and I hadn't been with my mom for so long, so it was a big shock. So I lived there until I lived with her and my stepfather there, and our relationship did get better between my mom and I. And then I got pregnant. I got pregnant at 22, and I had my oldest daughter, Melanie, when I was 23 years old, from a relationship that really wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't really a relationship that was any serious. So when I told Melanie's father that I was pregnant with her, he, suggested I should have an abortion. And that's not what I wanted. And so I decided I was going to raise her as a single mom. And I did. I had my daughter. And then my dad invited us to move back here with him. So we moved back to the U.S. when she was 2 months old. And did, kind of like odd jobs, delivering newspaper and babysitting and, doing all kinds of things because I didn't really have a degree at that point. So, did whatever I could to just provide for her. I was living with my dad.
Growing up with a single father left me with a bit of a hole about my identity and who I was as far as my mother's side of the family, and always having a question of how I might have been different had I grown up with her. My father actually made a very big effort my mother's family lives in California, so he made a pretty big effort when I was younger to send me there every summer to spend time with them, I think, so that I could kind of have a little better idea of who I was. But there's always a question, of how it would have been different. So that was always, that can take you to a low place sometimes.
And then one day I decided, I was actually really slowly falling into depression. I've struggled with anxiety and depression all my life. And my aunt, who is my father's sister, she lives close to us, and she's always been a big role model in my life. She said, I see you're very sad, and I just see you so downcast all the time. She's like, what can we do to make you, better? You feel better. And she's like, what did you always want to do? You want to go back to school? Do you want to, what do you want to do?
The highs were, I had a very good relationship with my father, and I really feel like he did everything he could to give me a good childhood. And he pushed me definitely to do better, both with school and with athletics. And with all of that, with athletics, with school, you have ups and downs. You have times when you fail a test or you underperform at an athletic event, and you get down on yourself. But it is always good to have a supportive parent there for you. I always kind of knew I could turn to him. So.
And I said, well, I want to be a flight attendant. I always wanted to be a flight attendant from when I was little. It was one of my very first, healthy and good childhood memories that I had was going to the airport, watching the airplanes take off with my dad. So it was always at the back of my mind. But at that point, as a single mom with no education, I'm like, this could never happen. And so my aunt told me, if that's what you want, go for it. She encouraged me. I went back to school. I got my GED. I got my high school diploma. And then I started applying to airlines. I knocked on so many doors, and everybody said no, until finally this little regional airline said yes, and I went to work for them. And my aunt helped me with Melanie, and she took care of her for a while for me, and I worked there for quite some time. And then from one airline to another airline, I ended up in my major airline that I work with now.
Went to college in the Northeast, and then came down to Miami for business school.
It affected me in every way. I was so angry. I think a lot of my anxiety and my depression stemmed from that. I just couldn't understand. I was 9 years old, and to me it didn't make sense. I had to, as a young girl, deal with a rejection. In my eyes, it was a rejection because I felt like my mom walking out on us was a rejection. And so why would you, out of all people, would your mom not want to be in your life? And that was what I grew up with, so that feeling just kind of, it led to a mistrust of other females. I didn't have, I didn't have any female friendships. I didn't want to be around females. I didn't want to be around women. So it led to a lot of just anger and a lot of just life owes me something. It was almost as if, why did I get dealt these bad cards? This shouldn't be where I'm at. I don't deserve this. That was my, growing up, that's how I felt.
After I finished that, I worked in New York City on a trading floor, and that's where I met my wife. We got married. I have 3 beautiful kids, and that's kind of where I'm at now.
I look back now at all the stuff that I went through, and I understand why I had to go through all of that. It shaped me into who I needed to become. And I don't think I would be who I am if I didn't go through all of that. And of course, while you're going through it, it just hurts and it doesn't make sense and it just makes you angry. But if I could just give you a little projector that would show you a vision into what your life will be if you just hang on, Because you may not have a dad or may not have a mom that's present, but you always have a Heavenly Father, and He's always looking out for you. And He's not going to leave you. He's not going to forsake you. He's going to pave the way and use all of that hurt to help you. And I know it's hard to see when you're going through it, but that's how it plays out.
You can find a lot of reasons to kind of get down on yourself, whether it's your self-esteem with your friends or school or watch the news or whatever it may be. And while it certainly helps to have a parent there in your corner, a lot of it you can kind of look into yourself and see how you develop sort of a self-confidence that you can handle these situations. It can be helpful to reach out to, maybe if it's not a parent, another mentor, whether it's through the church or another organization where you have positive role models in your life. I think that's really what the important part is, or whether it's a parent or somebody else you look up to to have somebody that you trust that you can kind of bounce your ideas off of and talk to when you have those down moments. A teacher, somebody like that.
Jesus was always by my side. I wasn't always attentive to that. I didn't always realize that he was by my side. It wasn't really until I got older and I started to have a relationship with him that I understood that he had been always by my side. I mean, all of the things that I went through and all of the stuff that could have happened to me that didn't because he was with me, it makes it so clear that he was always watching out for me, guiding me, protecting me. But at that time, I didn't really trust that he was there because I didn't have that relationship, but I had people pouring over me. And I had, for example, my aunt, who's always been like a woman of God, who's always spoken life over me. I would say pay attention to those people because when we're going through it and they're talking about it, it just seems like they're annoying you. Like, don't come at me with this Jesus stuff. You don't know what I'm going through. That's what you think. But listen to what they're saying, because if I know that if it wasn't for my aunt planting those seeds in my heart, that I probably would have never gone down the good road that I did go. I would have chosen a different path. And so knowing that, even though I couldn't see him and I couldn't feel him and I didn't know he was there, just having that hope that maybe was enough. They say well, it's a mustard seed type of faith, right? And that's all I had. And that was enough. So if you have that little mustard seed, just hang on to that.
Well, I always try and make sure that I am giving the kids everything they need to develop positive self-esteem for themselves, positive characteristics, how to interact with other people, how to treat other people, and also pushing them, when they don't want to be pushed, to work harder, to try harder. Because, even myself as a kid, I knew that there were times when I would be lazy and I wouldn't have achieved certain things had I not been pushed. So I want to make sure I'm always there for that. And that's what I had growing up, and I think it's very important to instill that in my kids.
And we all go through hard stuff, right? All of us. And I'm sharing my story, and maybe hearing it is saying, wow, she went through a lot. But I mean, the more I talk to women, I get to talk to women every single day about their life experiences and what they're going through and experiencing. The more I talk to people, the more I realize my story is not that unique. We're all fighting a battle that nobody sees. So I think knowing that you're not alone in your pain, right? Everybody is fighting something. And I think just keeping that perspective that life here really is short. And not sweating the small stuff. I mean, that's one thing that I've learned, like I'll get sad or upset over things every once in a while. And I allow myself a couple of minutes to just be angry and upset. And then I think to myself, will I remember this in 5 years? Will I remember this in 10 years? Is it really going to matter? And if the answer to that is no, I just let it roll off my back and keep going, It's so easy. You always have a choice. You can focus on the positive or you can focus on the negative. And we have plenty of negative to focus on, but we also have so much to be grateful for every single day. So it's all a question of mindset. What are you going to choose to focus on? Because the more you think about it, the more it shows up in your life, right? It was Jesus that helped me get out of my depression. It's Jesus that helps me get out of my anxiety. I know sometimes that hole is just so real. It's just so real, and it's just so painful. And you know that you can't get out of it on your own. You can't. And you're right. You can't. So you have to have some kind of a hope or someone or something to cling on to. And for me, that's always been Jesus. Jesus to me, when I say that name, it means hope. Like it's hope that pain is not going to last forever. It's hope that somebody's looking out for me. It's hope that, he's going to comfort me. It's hope that tomorrow's going to be better. And that's what I think that's if I had to say one thing, I would say that, just Jesus.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's a lot of really wealthy and rich people out there that I don't really consider good people. And, you want to instill your values in kids, in kids and the things you find important. And we draw them from the church and just from how we think other people should be treated. Well, certainly I want my kids to be able to function in society and to be able to pay their expenses and things like that. Beyond that, if they have to step over other people to do that, then their goal isn't the right goal. It's not just to have the biggest house or to have the biggest bank account. It's also to create something in life, and to, whether it's your family, whether it's helping other people. That's really, I think it's really the most important thing.
I don't find time for my kids. I find time for everything else that I want to do. My kids are my priority. So everything else goes around them, right? And that was something that I struggled with as well, because my personality is I'm a doer. I like to do things. I like to be busy. The more I do, the more I want to accomplish, and that's my innate person. That's who I am. But God has slowed me down very much and said, you know what, that's not what's important. What matters here is what kind of values are you instilling in your kids? And if I'm over here telling you that the money doesn't matter, it's the impact, am I being an example of that for my kids, right? Because if I'm putting making money or flying or coaching or whatever it is in front of the quality time that I am to spend with my kids, then I'm really not having that much of an integrity, right? Because I'm saying something and I'm not showing that to them. And at the end of the day, the biggest impact that I need to make is on my children. They're the ones I spend the most time with. And what they're seeing me do is what they will do when they grow up. And so if my priority is to help them grow into healthy, productive, good citizens, good people who love God, then that's who I need to be, right? That's what I need to be for them. And so, yeah, everything else fits around them. And it's a struggle, I'm not going to say it's easy, and it's not, I don't always get it right, and it's a constant thing. But for example, something that I like to do in the morning, and for years I got up in the morning and I ran downstairs to read my Bible and, to do my workout before the kids were up. I inverted that because to me, yes, it's important that I do those things, but I want my kids to see me when they wake up. So I climb into bed with them. I kiss them and I say, hey, good morning. How was your sleep? Do you know you're loved? You're so beautiful. And just speak affirmations over them. And then I climb out of bed, and then I come down and read my Bible and do my workouts. But it was a priority thing for me. I think a lot of times we allow time to dictate us, like how we're going to spend it. And it's kind of like with your money, right? If you don't tell it where to go, it's gonna tell it for you. And I think a lot of times people do the same thing with their time, and their time is their most precious possession, right? It's the one limited resource that we have here on the earth that we don't get back. And so think about, where you are allowing your time to go. A lot of times it's just a matter of learning to say no to unimportant things, right? And that no can become a yes that you give to your child. It's making sure you're present. It's making sure you're present, because a lot of times we are around our kids, but we're not present. And I'm guilty of that. And I that's something that's been revealed to me as well, is if I am sitting on the couch with my kids and we're watching TV, it's not being on my phone. I'm here with them, making sure they feel important and seen and heard, and that you're present. And I'm not saying that I always get it right.
Everybody has this idea of, well, I want my kids to do this when they grow up. I want them to be a famous lawyer, doctor, president, whatever it may be. But really, the important thing, I think, is that they grow up to be good people. They treat other people with respect. I want them to be successful in whatever they do, but even more than that, I want them to be happy. So that really will be my best success when I see them growing older into strong, independent girls to women, and that's really what'll be my proudest day. And that's really what I see why I do all the things I do now for them. It's because I want that.
He's always helped me with soccer.
What are some other things he helps you with?
School. Most of his jokes I don't get, so.
His jokes that you don't get?
Yep.
So he makes funny dad jokes? Yeah. What's one thing about your mom?
I like her food.
Like her food? So you like eating a lot? Yeah.
Yeah.
Eat a lot?
She's normally the one to help you with your homework and stuff like that.
So she always spends time with you?
Mhm.
A lot?
Yeah.
Even though she's busy?
Yep.
Oh, there's such a blessing at the end. There's such a blessing at the end waiting for them. I mean, I look at my daughter now and see the amazing young lady that she's become, and I am just so proud of her. And I'm so happy that I decided to do what I did. because I can't imagine my life without her. She shaped who I am. Shaped who I am, and my life is better because she's in it. So just hold on. I know it's hard. It really is hard. It's really hard, but there's such a blessing at the end. After I had my second daughter, I gained a lot of weight, and I was, I was struggling with postpartum depression. I was trying to find myself out of that, and I realized that I was alone. We had just moved to Florida, and I had just started a new job because I also have a degree in nursing. So I had started a job at a hospital, and I was just kind of struggling because I went from, my 20s where I was, in school and working and being a single mom, and my life was one way. And then all of a sudden I got married and we moved to Florida, and I gained all this weight and I had this new baby, and I was just like, who am I? It was more of like an identity crisis than anything else. And I started to fall into like a depression over it. I realized I was alone. I didn't have anybody here. I didn't have any family. My husband was working long hours, and I was just home with this baby and this extra weight. And I struggled with that for a while. I did. And then it wasn't until she was 11 months old that I decided, okay, I'm going to have to do something. I have to do something about this. I can't continue like this. And so it was really like that, a snap of a decision. And I started looking around, okay, how am I going to lose this weight? And I had a friend who was actually doing the same thing. She was somebody that went to nursing school with me, and she had just had a baby, and she was working out and eating healthy and doing all of the things that I wanted to do. And I was following her around on social media, and she inspired me. And so, we got together and we got into a community, and we started helping each other, sharing recipes and, workout videos and doing programs together. And I dropped the weight, and I realized that a lot of it was just because I was lacking community. I was lacking community. I was lacking, support. I felt alone. And so when I got that, it changed my life. So as I was doing that, and people, of course, if you lose a lot of weight really fast, people are going to ask you, like, what are you doing? And so they started to ask me, and I would show them. And then all of a sudden, I kind of found myself in this coach role where I was helping people. I was showing them what I was doing, and I was helping them lose weight as well. And that really turned out to be very gratifying for me. It was very fulfilling. I was working in a hospital where I felt like I wasn't really making a difference. I felt like I was just passing pills around and not really helping people get healthy, just putting a Band-Aid on, masking their symptoms. And that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people be healthy. So I got inspired by that and by my own fitness journey and, how I overcame that. And I wanted to show other women how to do it. She'd probably laugh because I wasn't appreciative of her when I was younger. I was just like, well, in the back of my mind, I was like, you're not my mom. You can't tell me what to do. But she was such an important role because she actually, not only did she lead me in my spiritual journey, like she was the one and only that spoke Jesus over me. And that was, if nothing else, that's just, she did so much. But not just that, it was simple things like knowing how to have manners and how to carry myself as a young lady, and even though at the time it was annoying, and I know a lot of parents feel the same way, like they're annoying their kids because they're always saying the same stuff and kids get annoyed by it, but it gets in there, man. It gets in there because she, the stuff that she said to me is still stuff that I hear myself saying to my kids, and yes, no, she was not my mom, and I knew that very well, and I think that to me now even means more because she didn't have the obligation to be there for me, and she chose to out of love, right? Because who does that for another child or for somebody else's child if not out of love? So I think if you have somebody like that in your life and you can recognize that, they don't have to be there, they're choosing to be there, then you can understand that it's out of love. I think there's such a stigma and especially with social media nowadays, people want to portray this perfect life, right? That's what they see and that's what they want to show others. But I think the real strength and the real, the real way that we create an impact is by being vulnerable and sharing our struggles. And I say that because I talk a lot about my anxiety and I talk a lot about my depression. I know there's a stigma around all of that, mental health, but I know that I didn't go through all of that I went through for no reason, right? God had a purpose in that. And the purpose, I think, is to help other women who are struggling with it. And how will they know if I don't share my story? How will they feel comfortable enough to come to me and talk to me if I never talk about it, right? So by normalizing it, by talking about it, I'm opening up a door for that woman that's struggling. And I think of myself 8-9 years ago as I was struggling, how I wish that I would have felt safe enough to reach out to someone and say, hey, me too. I'm going through that too. And to have had the support would have been life-changing, right? So I aim to be that person for people. I open that door, and believe it or not, like I work with this, and this is what a lot of my income comes from. But a lot of times, it's just praying for people. It's just, opening up that message and saying, wow, you're going through this, and helping them through it, and it's rewarding to me. I feel like I'm making an impact. Whether or not I'm making money, I'm making an impact. I help people every day. Whether or not I sign up a customer, I'm still helping them, right? Even if it's just praying for them.
Yeah. It's not about the money, it's about the impact.
100%.
Goes way more than that, right?
Yeah, 100%. Because I really think that, you could make all of the money in the world and achieve all of the levels of success, but if you're not being fulfilled, you're miserable, right? If you're not living in your purpose, what God put you on this earth for, then you're not going to feel happy or successful. It's just, it's success without, that fulfillment is like, it's failure. I think a lot of that, and I'll be honest, because I've been there too. When I first started on social media, I didn't really understand how to use it. And I thought that I had to do what everybody else was doing, right, to be successful and to get the likes and the followers. And, that was really important to me. But as I went on, that didn't feel authentic. And it really didn't make me feel good about the message that I was sending out. And I think a lot of it, and I struggled with it a lot, and I actually asked God a lot for help with this. What am I trying to send? Like, what do I want the person that's on the other side of that screen to feel as they're reading this post? And a lot of it came from just struggling with my own identity and who I am, and who am I trying to please, right? Am I trying to please the followers, the crowd, or am I trying to please God? Like, I think that was, that's where I had to really figure out who I am and be confident in who I am in God as His daughter, and not care. I don't care if I feel good about a post, if I get up in the morning and I'm inspired to share something about my depression or healthy eating or whatever it is that I'm inspired to write about that day, and I feel good about it, I don't care if it gets one like, because my message is going to go to the one person who needs to hear it. Doesn't need to reach 1,000 people. It needs to reach that one person that it's meant for. And so, yeah, you really have to stand firm in who you are as a child of God, rather than, someone who's out there just trying to please others. From personal experience, you're waiting, as kids, we're waiting for an opportunity to prove that what our parents are saying is wrong. I think that's where our ultimate goal in life is when we're young. We want to, as we assert ourselves, we're trying to look for reasons like, could they be lying to me? Like, there's that whole confusion, right? And so I think that the transparency part is so important for that reason, knowing that your parents are on your side, that they love you, that they care for you no matter what. We'll leave that door open for them to come and have those conversations with you. And I think when we're first there and we can tell them like what we think or what we know to be true, that leaves less of a confusion for them when they are presented with the situation to say, okay, well, what do I think about that? I don't know what to think about that because I've never been told, I've never been taught. So I think it's important to be there first, like, so that they know and they're prepared.
Yeah, I know some parents would rather shelter kids like that, but I just feel like, and at the end of the day, every parent has their own method of parenting, but I feel like going in school and living out in society, unless you're going to keep them locked in the house all day, they're going to see people that are allowed to do things they're not allowed to do, or allowed to watch things they're not allowed to watch, and then that's just going to give them a curiosity to want to see it. Why can't I do that? Why can't she can do it? Why can't I?
Right.
So I just think it's better to be open about that, and give a little bit from our end, but also if it's something we really don't want them to be participating in, explain why.
Yeah.
Explain why that is, and of course they may not agree with it, and it may lead to arguments, but at the end of the day,
Don't know where you stand.
they know where you stand, and also there's times when you have to do the unpopular thing for their own good.
Yeah.
But it's important too to give them a say in it. At least
Yeah.
explain why you're doing it, instead of just being like a prison warden. And
Right.
I think they appreciate that. Well, the story of how we met's kind of funny, because she works as a flight attendant and I was a passenger on the plane. And we have an argument to this day as to whether or not I contend she was hitting on me, and she contends she was just doing her job and being friendly to the customers. So that's always kind of a joke we go back and forth on.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you ask her in this interview, she'll probably say something different. But
So once my dad was mowing a lawn and my mom was upstairs working and my little sister was in her room sleeping. And I was downstairs playing with the toys. My mom and my dad come inside from doing whatever they were doing. And they're like, where's Allie? And they both thought that each other had them, that each other had me. And so they had no idea where I was. And my sister was sleeping the entire time through all this. And so they called all the neighbors, they called the police. They had no idea where I was, sleeping. Anyway, the police are like, did you check everywhere in the house? And my mom's like, yes, I did. And it's funny to say now, but it wasn't funny when it happened.
Yeah.
And the police were like, we're just gonna check the house. And she's like, no, she's not in here. You gotta go check somewhere else. So they just went and checked the house, and one of the last places that they checked was the living room, and I was in there under a pillow, sleeping the entire time.